So now we're moving on to simplifying radical expressions involving multiplication. You can go about this in several different ways, but how we're approaching it in this lesson is we're going to factor out the constants first and multiply those together, and then we're going to simplify the radicals accordingly. So with part A, we have 3 times the square root of 2 times 2 times the square root of 30. So let's take our constants and move those out front. So we have 3 times 2, and then we have the square root of 2 times the square root of 30, all multiplication. Now this is where it gets a little ambiguous as far as what the next steps would be. My approach is I just like to combine the radicals. Let's multiply what's underneath the radicals since we're both taking the square root. So multiplying through, we end up with 6 times the square root of 2 times 30 is 60. Now let's factor out the perfect squares if there are any. We have that this is 60 is 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. 4 is a perfect square. So we will factor that out. This ends up being 6 times the square root of 4 times 15. Square root of 4 is 2. 6 times 2 is 12. And we're left with the square root of 15. No perfect squares left in there. So simplified, this is 12 times the square root of 15. Now let's take the same approach and apply it to an expression involving cube roots. So we take the constants, bring them out front. 2 times negative 3 times the cube root of 18 times the cube root of 6. Now that equals 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And that's the cube root of 18 times 6. Well, if we look at this, what are the factors of each of these? We have 3 times 2 for 18 and 3 times 2 for 6. So if you notice, there are 3 3's in there. So we can rewrite this as, actually, I'll just go ahead and add in that step. Negative 6 times the cube root of, you can always put this in prime factorization to see what the largest cube root or perfect cube is that we can take the cube root of. So 18 is 3 times 2. 6 is 3 times 2. So if you notice, there are 1, 2, 3 3's. So we can rewrite this as negative 6 times the cube root of 3 cubed times 2 squared. That equals, the cube root of 3 cubed is just 3. So this ends up being negative 6 times 3 times the cube root of 2 squared is 4. And negative 6 times 3 is negative 18 times the cube root of 4.